Good morning, colleagues, or good evening, I believe, for some of you, and thank you for joining. This is the last content-related session in the course on fostering the social and professional reintegration for returning migrants, which is exciting, but also bittersweet because we're reaching the end of our learning journey together. I see that we are a relatively small group, so it's going to be a bit of an intimate session this morning. But let me encourage you, as usual, to try and make the most of the fact that our experts are here. So try to engage in a conversation, ask your questions, share your reflections, your experiences as you have done up until now. I have to say I'm very happy with the conversations and the discussions that we've had in this course up until now. As usual, you can do that in two ways, either by posting in the chat, and we can pick it up from there, or by raising your hand, and we can give you the floor directly. So we'll try to keep this, like I said, a bit of a conversation rather than a one-way street. I'm very happy to welcome online today our colleagues Obiananma Agbim. I hope I have pronounced your name correctly. Thank you, Obi, who is a technical officer in the labor migration branch. Natalia Popova, who is also a senior labor migration specialist in the labor migration branch at the ILO HQ in Geneva. And they will guide us today through the ILO actions on reintegration, the strategies and the approach, and the guidelines that the ILO has published on the reintegration of returning migrants. As usual, the session material will be posted on the eCampus after we finish, so the recording as well as the accompanying material, meaning the PowerPoints, the text of the guidelines for you to refer back to, and any other additional readings that may be mentioned at any point during the session. I would say that that's it from my side. Perhaps one last announcement. Do not forget that on Friday next week, we will have on Friday this week, so next Friday, we will have the group work presentation. So if you need to put the finishing touches on your presentations on the work that your group has been doing, take this opportunity to do so. We are very much looking forward to hearing the results of your discussions and exchanging some thoughts and some ideas with you on Friday. With that being said, I'm going to stop and pass the floor to Obi. Thank you once again for being here. Thank you, Natalia, for joining. I will let you take the lead on the session, and I will see you all later. Thank you all. Over to you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you all can hear me loud and clear. Yes? You can hear me?
Yes, we can, Obi. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, so like my colleague said, my name is Obiananma Agbim, and I work for the Labor Migration Branch at the ILO HQ as a technical officer. And today I will be presenting on the labor markets and social reintegration of returned migrant workers. Next slide, please. So today, these are going to be the key questions guiding our discussion. The first is, what drives policy interest in return and labor markets in reintegration? The second is, do we need specific policies to support the reintegration of returnees? The third is, what types of data and information are critical in understanding labor market reintegration? And the last is, what lessons have we learned from past experiences in return and reintegration policies? Next slide, please. So for the purpose of this presentation, we'll begin by understanding some key concepts. What is labor market reintegration? This refers to the range of measures and incentives designed to help returnees re-enter the workforce and contribute to the economic development of their home country. Some of these measures may include support for employment, entrepreneurship, and investment opportunities. Usually, a successful reintegration framework ensures that returnees' skills, experiences, and resources are effectively utilized to benefit the local economy. Now, social reintegration. This usually refers to the processes for supporting returnees and their families in reestablishing their lives in their communities by addressing essential needs like housing, education, healthcare, and so on. It usually involves fostering acceptance and helping individuals regain their place in society while ensuring they have access to services that facilitate their well-being. Sometimes these processes could also focus on reducing stigmatization and promoting inclusion, which helps them transition back to their home environments. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights several return migration scenarios that need to be considered in designing labor market reintegration policies and strategies. The first, we have the return scenario. Here, migrants return to their countries of origin where the long-term goal is to stay there. The second, we have remigration. Some returnees remigration. Some returnees migrate again to another destination country. Usually, this group requires short-term support. Now, this scenario is often as a result of labor market challenges they may face in origin countries, such as limited job opportunities. And as a result, many of them may be forced to reconsider remigrating due to a lack of economic opportunities. Next, we have circulation. This usually involves shuttling between origin and destination countries. The next, we have multiple migration destinations. This usually involves migrants moving between various countries of destinations and pass through one or more countries en route to their final destination. Last, we have the transient migration. This refers to situations where a migrant moves from one destination country to another before returning to their country of origin. Now, it's important to understand these scenarios because it's used to tailor reintegration programs for specific migrant needs. It would help reduce cost, and it will help optimize and maximize service delivery. Next slide, please. Now, this slide demonstrates the different motivations countries might adopt in creating reintegration policies. Often, policies are a combination of several types, and sometimes they have to be tailored to each country's needs. So, for instance, countries might offer incentives to returnees to address their skill shortages or address their demographic shifts, as in the case of Albania and Moldova. Also, in response to brain drain, countries design policies to attract highly skilled migrants for knowledge transfer, which is typically seen in the tech sector and in the R&D spaces. Further, if we look at the lime green circle, we see the case of mass returns due to crisis or force majeure circumstances. This was seen particularly in the COVID-19 pandemic and in the Saudi Arabia's bulk deportation of about 170,000 Ethiopian migrant domestic workers in 2013. Lastly, some origin countries aim to attract retired return migrants, not necessarily to reintegrate them into their labor markets, but to contribute to the development of the local economy through spending, consumption, investments, and ultimately job creation. Next slide, please. Okay, so when discussing the return of refugees and migrant workers, it's crucial to recognize that international standards and conventions prioritize their reintegration. These standards usually ensure that reintegration is both rights-based and supportive, offering protection and fostering a fair and effective transition back into society and the workforce. So below you have a few. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and return to his country. We have the International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrant Workers and their family members. We have the ILO Migration for Employment Convention, which aims to protect the rights of migrant workers regarding recruitment, return, and employment. We have the ILO guiding principles on the access of refugees and other forcibly displaced persons to labor markets, which usually promotes labor market access for refugees and displaced persons. We have the ILO multilateral framework that advocates for orderly, right-based migration and reintegration. And lastly, we have the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, which encourages states to cooperate in facilitating safe and dignified return, readmission, and as well as sustainable reintegration. Okay, next slide, please. On this slide, we have the level of analysis, which helps us understand how reintegration efforts must be tailored to meet challenges at every stage to ensure a holistic approach to successful reintegration. Now, these different levels are usually overlapping and mutually connected and in constant interaction. The slide breaks down the multidimensional challenges of both labor and social reintegration across 4 levels, namely structural, institutional, community, and individual levels. Now, when we talk about the structural level, we're looking at how returnees access key social services like education, housing, and healthcare. Usually, their integration is shaped by broader social processes, including cultural norms in their home country. Also, at this level, reintegration policies must consider factors like gender, age, and diversity to meet the specific needs of these different migrant workers. However, a big challenge is often faced at this level as stigmatization often occurs, especially for women and refugees who might face discrimination due to their migration or displacement. Other reasons returnees might face stigma and discrimination include unsuccessful migration experiences or loss of family assets on return due to indebtedness. Next, we have the institutional level of reintegration, which involves designing a coordinated system that ensures returnees receive the necessary support. So national institutions alongside local and international partners need to work together to provide services to monitor the progress of reintegration efforts. Cooperation with destination countries is also allowed here through bilateral labor migration agreements that can even help protect these returnees. However, a major challenge at this level is usually the lack of resources and support, which can undermine the effectiveness of the reintegration programs. Usually, we see a lack of institutional capacity to design, implement, monitor, and evaluate reintegration policies and measures for returnees. In addition, the responsibility for reintegration may spread across different ministries and agencies, and most times we see that there's no coordination or coherence. And you see, at this level, there might be adverse implications for skill and qualification recognition systems, which could increase informality and remigration. At the community level, the reintegration of migrant workers and former refugees is mainly realized actually at this level. And this is where returnees interact with the local populations. However, one of the big challenges here is the potential tension, between returnees and locals, as returnees may be seen as competitors in the labor market. So it's important for reintegration services to be easily and readily available at the community level. Lastly, we have the individual level, and here reintegration depends heavily on personal needs and resources of the returnees. However, one of the challenges here is individuals face loss of networks and market accessibility, which hinders their reintegration efforts. So building social networks is very important at this level because connections tend to provide advice, support, and even referrals to job opportunities. Here, returnees must take an active role in identifying reintegration solutions because We see in many cases, public employment services are usually like overburdened with high cases of, with a lot of high cases that they need to attend to. So they have work overload, right? And sometimes they're not in a position to offer targeted services for individuals. Also, we see private employment agencies tend to focus on the recruitment of workers for employment abroad. So I'm just trying to emphasize that it's important for individuals to be proactive in identifying reintegration solutions for themselves. Next slide, please. Okay. So on this slide, we'll explore some guiding principles to adopt when developing a reintegration strategy. So it's speaking to the former slide in the sense that it offers, the way to go in drafting a holistic reintegration policy. First of all, we have a comprehensive reintegration package, which is crucial for successful reintegration as returnees require support across stages of their return, right? Here, tailored approaches or responses should address the diverse needs of returnees, including gender, age, and stigma. For instance, following the deportation of Ethiopian domestic workers from Saudi Arabia, the ILO actually launched an anti-stigmatization campaign. So this included TV and radio shows, social media engagement, community meetings to reach millions of people to create a supportive environment to reduce stigma, whilst also promoting local job opportunities. Another good example is the reintegration project in the Dankuta municipality in Nepal, where there was a multidimensional and multi-sectoral approach, right? The project provided economic empowerment, psychosocial support, and capacity building initiatives, enabling participants to reintegrate in society and start income-generating activities. By focusing on this holistic approach, right, the project actually promoted long-term sustainability, helping these returnees not just to survive alone, but to thrive, right? And then the next one we have allocate necessary human and financial resources for reintegration. So it's important to designate officials to coordinate efforts in ensuring the organization of, the implementation process. And, wherever you identify staff capacity gaps, training and capacity building is vital. Also, securing sustainable funding sources ensures long-term success. Now, while initial support from international donors can help, countries must gradually assume full responsibility to ensure that reintegration programs remain effective and sustainable in the long run. Then we have collaboration of social partners and policy domains. So when I speak on collaboration of social partners and policy domains, it's the extent to which these entities speak to one another, right? To avoid fragmentation in design implementation. It's also important that national policies such as the education and the training and employment policies, amongst others, are speaking to one another. However, in many origin countries, we see that the employment and the training policies do not cover returned migrant workers and their specific needs. Okay, so we have engaged the local community and public and private organizations at the community level to ease tensions. Okay, we spoke about this. It's important that the local community is fully involved in the reintegration process and that measures for foreseeing returnees are available to all workers. Here, local institutions play a major role in data collection, providing opportunities and addressing social and psychological challenges. Next, we have the lack of recognition for skills. Yes, we have the establishment of accessible systems for skills and qualification recognition. Yes, so here the ILO emphasizes the importance of facilitating certification processes to acknowledge returnees' skills, enabling them to leverage their experience in the local job market. This solution usually enhances employability, it boosts economic reintegration, and it also reduces the likelihood of informality and remigration. Also, it's important to integrate reintegration into migration and employment policies. Many countries lack comprehensive labor migration policy and a national strategy covering socioeconomic reintegration. There might be, however, different legal frameworks that indirectly tackle socioeconomic reintegration issues. However, it's important to embed reintegration into these policies. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is basically tying up some of the things that I've spoken about earlier on. And then there are 3 phases in the reintegration policy process. So in the first phase, we have preparation and design. Here, you will need to carry out data collection, ensuring that data is sex aggregated and socially inclusive. This is important to establish a benchmark. Then you need to understand the returnees' socioeconomic profiles. From there, you need to establish governance mechanisms by defining who the leading government institution would be. You need to define who the leading government institution would be to be responsible for policy coordination, and then ensure that there's adequate financial resources for implementation. And then you would have had more or less developed a policy framework. Now, that framework should be accompanied by an operational action plan targeting specific measures. In the implementation phase, we have about 3 scenarios, right? So we have labor market reintegration. It's straightforward. Here, they find jobs and they remain in their countries of origin. Then we have the retirement phase. Here, they don't necessarily have to be reintegrated into the labor market, but their investments can help boost local community. However, the issue in this retirement block is that there are concerns around the portability of social security schemes. So you have to ask yourself, how effectively can retired return migrants effectively access their pensions in their home countries? And then we have remigration, where certain services like pre-departure trainings and advice need to be in place. Now, in the last phase, we have monitoring and evaluation. It's important to have measurable indicators to track the progress of the action plan and ensure effective implementation. This process also allows for adjustments to be made on actual outcomes. In terms of the policy cycle, after the first round of implementation, feedback should be collected and updated in the next cycle of actions. However, this is rarely the case, and this is rarely done effectively, making it hard to assess what worked well and what didn't. Without proper feedback, improving or refining future policies become a challenge. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so on this slide, we have data collection and tools to assess labor market reintegration. So starting with the survey data, this usually includes things like field inquiries, like population censuses and sample surveys. And they are key tools for capturing migration stocks at the time of collection, though they may not effectively measure continuous migration flows over time. Then you have administrative sources. Here you have migration registration systems in many countries, primarily gathering data on incoming individuals, but often overlook those leaving, leading to gaps in understanding full migration patterns. And then at the global, regional, and country levels, we have various data sets providing insights into return and reintegration. For example, the IOM and the UNHCR collect data on voluntary and forced returns, while we have the Eurostat providing data on third country nationals ordered or returned from EU territories. We have multi-country studies like the European Training Foundation's projects and databases from regions like Central and South America, also capturing trends, allowing for a broad analysis of labor market reintegration across different contexts. Next slide, please. Okay, so on this slide, we have some reintegration operational tools. So starting with the first one, we have the Return Migration Questionnaire, which is a valuable reintegration tool for collecting detailed data on returnees, and it also covers personal demographics, education levels, and household information. Typically, household surveys overlook returnees on usually household surveys overlook returnees as a specific group, but this tool can bridge that gap by focusing on their unique experiences. By asking targeted questions such as educational background and family dynamics, this questionnaire helps gather essential data to inform policies and programs. On the second tool, we have the focus group discussion tool, which provides an opportunity to gather qualitative data on the challenges and needs of returned migrant workers. By engaging returnees in a structured conversation, we can better understand the specific services they require for successful reintegration, such as training and support. This tool usually helps to identify gaps in the current offerings and enables policy makers design more effective reintegration programs. It's mostly used when working with marginalized or discriminated groups to tailor trainings and services, all in the name of promoting inclusivity and equal opportunity in the labor market. The last tool is actually a monitoring tool, and it's the tracer study tool. Now, this method helps monitor how effective the reintegration measures have been by following up with participants after they have completed the program. The study focuses on who has found employment and who hasn't, helping determine the success rate of certain policy interventions. By tracking this data, reintegration programs can assess areas that they need improvement on, and they can make necessary adjustments to provide more targeted support in the future. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. And at this point, I hand over to Natalia Popova for the question and answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Obi. Thank you. So today we have a very small crowd. This is the first time we have so few, but I'm sure the other participants will catch up with the recording. So I would invite Ida and Tupu and Victor and Yvonne to raise their question. I didn't see anything in the chat yet so far, or to raise their hand, or Natalia if you want to clarify, to add some things while they think about their questions, I over to you, Natalia.
Just to add on some of the last points that Obi was showing, because usually collecting information and statistics on returned migrants is very challenging. So at the ILO, we have developed, as Obi showed, some specific tools which are available online for those who are interested, in order to improve the data collection on the specific group, because of course, if we do not know what are the characteristics and needs, it is very difficult then to also design targeted measures. And both quantitative but also qualitative data would be equally of value when we want to study return migration. So in addition to, let's say, including specific questions in household surveys, such as labor force surveys, or running targeted surveys just focusing on return migration, also we have published guidelines for focus group discussions, for example, where you could collect information directly from the beneficiaries, which is very important. And in addition, what we have done is to try to develop tools, again, they are available online, where we would like to improve the monitoring and evaluation of return policies and measures. Again, this is an area where we see that there is a lot of need in terms of providing support to policymakers in order to make sure that, policies are targeted and they are in a position to achieve their originally planned objectives. Yeah. And as I said, these tools are available online, and I'm going to share the link with Marianne after we finish so that she could put them on the eCampus for those of you who would like to have more information.
Thank you very much, Natalia. So I see no questions, so I will ask for last time if you have any questions. I don't know if Obi wants to add anything. Presentation was very clear and full of information. So so we have Ida. Okay, so you couldn't join on time. Thank you for your comment, Ida. Anything from Tupu or Victor or Yvonne? Usually you are quite active in the question and answers part. So I was wondering if you have any questions. Otherwise, I suppose we will leave Obi and Natalia go back to their regular office task and numerous meetings, I suppose. So
thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to appreciate the presentation. I mean, it speaks for itself. This is the ILO approach and the ILO standard, which is very high. And that is the peak or the expectation that we are all supposed to work towards. But like Popova has mentioned, I mean, there are challenges, not just with the data collection, but with other aspects in achieving this ideal goal. And this is what we are all expected to work towards, setting benchmarks. My only question would be, is there a time frame or is there a standard period in achieving this, or it is based on context in order to reintegrate targeted migrants, be they compelled migrants or complete cycle migrants, or as the case may apply? Are there specific estimated or expected time frame that, all things being equal, they should have been reintegrated fully, economically, socially, psychologically? What is the limited or maximum or minimum time frame? Is there any?
Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much. So I don't know if Natalia wants to start to answer, or Obi.
Okay, I will start to answer, and then Obi will will help me as well. There is no such standard time. I mean, really, it depends on the specific context where the reintegration is taking place. And as Obi showed in her presentation, actually countries have different motivation and needs of why they develop and implement return and reintegration policies. Like, for example, for many sending countries, actually, the COVID-19 pandemic put reintegration on their policy agenda because their interest was mostly to see how the nationals could go abroad in a regular and protected way. But when it came to labor market integration, this was not really a policy priority. For other origin countries, which let's say are experiencing demographic crisis and their labor force is shrinking, they are very much interested and proactive in terms of designing specific measures and actually even having specific campaigns in destination countries in order to attract back their nationals because they have very important skill gaps that they need to address because, as I said, their labor force is shrinking. So for them, implementing successful integration policies is really vital in order for their labor markets to function. So it really depends very much on the situation. And also, I think frequent reality that we see is that migrants, they come back, but then they re-immigrate. So many migrant workers are involved in temporary or seasonal migration. And then the type of reintegration assistance that you need to provide to a migrant worker, which is going to spend only part of the year back home, is very different from, let's say, a migrant worker who is going to remain and needs to also, I mean, of course, find employment, but also there is a need for the family to be reintegrated, for the children to go to school, to have housing. So again, there, the package of services that you're going to be offering is going to be very different. So that's why it is difficult to generalize and to say, well, I don't know, for example, you need 12 months and by the end of the 12 months, you should be fully integrated. No, it really very much depends on the local context, on the specific needs, and then your policies and measures need to be targeted to those needs. Okay. I hope I answered your question. I don't know, Obi, if you'd like to add something.
You said it all, Natalia.
Thank you very much. So I suppose, Victor, if you have anything else to ask, please take the floor. We have a comment from Tupu. So Tupu is based in in Tonga. So she said that it was very clear, a lot of information, and that she will need to go back and listen to the recording again because it's full really of information. And I understand that there were not some immediate questions as you have to digest it a bit, no? And so she said it's very helpful for them in Tonga with all the social issues surrounding labor mobility. They need to get a move on their reintegration policy. And this will be your information and presentation will be very helpful to fill in the gaps. So it's surely much appreciated. I will call on Yvonne if she has some comment, and then I would. Okay.
I have one more.
Victor, go ahead.
Yes, it's self-explanatory anyway, but you know the questions always come from your experience and expertise approach with the ILO approach that you have presented to us. Which of the aspects is most difficult to implement according to you in your assessment? Is it economical? Is it psychological? Is it social? Which aspect, according to you, generally or specifically or contextually, is the most difficult to implement or to achieve, according to you?
I think actually the most challenging part is that you need to have holistic approach. So it's not enough just to focus on one aspect of the reintegration process. Let me give you an example. We have been working in contexts where women migrant workers coming back home have a lot of challenges to reintegrate because the fact just of being a migrant abroad put a stigma on them. So local communities do not want to accept them back. So even if you, let's say, help them to find a job, still their life in the community is very challenging and reintegration might never take place because, as I said, they're not accepted. So actually what we see to be very successful is that you offer a combination of measures. So you do employment reintegration, but this needs to be combined with social, psychological support. In other cases, there is a need also to help provide housing. And as I said, also the family needs to be reintegrated in the local communities, children needs to go to school. So how you target your measures, so understanding the needs of the returnees, but then offering them a holistic support. It's not just about getting the job. It's very important, but it's not sufficient. So it needs to be a holistic reintegration in the labor market, but also in the local community. And then indeed reintegration is sustainable. Otherwise, very often what will happen is these people is going to migrate again. So this is what we have been observing in different parts of the world. And returnees, they all have different needs and different characteristics. So it's not like that you can implement one measure which can fit the needs of everybody. So the targeted approach is really key. So that's why you need to have some dedicated human and financial resources that Obi mentioned. I mean, it might seem obvious, but very often this is very challenging. And because there is no targeted approach, then the success of these measures could be a little bit dubious. So plan in advance, dedicate some resources, understand who is your client, and then try to help them holistically rather than just focusing on one specific aspect.
Thank you, Natalia. So thank you. I really want to thank you a lot. So I understood you will be sending me more resources. So Yvonne is also putting a comment. Thank you for the presentation and your insight. It's a lot to process, perhaps in slower time, because it's such an intricate discussion with many contingency. Well, yes, we understand it's the case. In any case, we will make the emails of Natalia and Obi available on the eCampus as the other speakers of all the sessions. You actually find it in each session. I have put the emails of the experts, so you can reach out to them. I understand that Natalia will send me more resources, so we will also put it on the session. And thank you so much, Obi and Natalia. We know your agendas are very full. Thank you to the participants and to the one who will be watching the recordings. So I let you go back to your office, ladies, and I just will make quick announcements to the participants we have in the room. Thank you again, Natalia and Obi. So I just want to remind you, and perhaps you can pass the word to your colleagues in your groups that the presentation is this Friday at 8 a.m. Central European time. So it's today we had the special request of our colleagues in Geneva to start a bit later, so we gave them only half an hour. They asked for 1 hour late, but we know for you who are in the Pacific region, it would have been really impossible. So we started half an hour later than usual, but not 1 hour. But this Friday, we start at 8 a.m. Central European time. So it's the regular time that we also always had. And we need to see your presentations. So you have these 2 days to finish the work. Thank you very much. Big thank you to you. Let me check. Okay, yes. Thank you, Yvonne, for your comments. Thank you, Victor, for your always very interesting questions. And so any question you have, any need you have, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we'll see you on Friday with your presentations. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Tupu.